Hello, everybody. Hello. Happy Sunday. Oh, another wonderful show for you today. Oh my gosh, I just feel so blessed and honored to share so many amazing guests with you. Today we have Joie Seldon, and she is a leadership coach and emotional intelligence master trainer. Joie addresses mental and emotional well-being and the interpersonal aspects of the workplace. She has helped clients from solopreneurs, I love that, and startups to Fortune 500 companies learn how to minimize stress, handle conflict effectively, increase creativity and innovation, and develop emotional fitness. Her mission is to teach easy-to-use techniques to master emotions, build healthy relationships, and fulfill ambitions. Drawing from her background as an entrepreneur, professional actor, acting teacher, and somatic counselor, she developed a keen understanding of human motivation and behavior. She is the author of this amazing book, Emotions, an owner's manual, and it teaches a highly effective online training called Emotions at Work. This book is so fantastic, Joy. I loved it.
Thank you.
So welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
I've been looking forward to this because I'm reading your book as well, and I love it. I think we're very much in alignment.
Oh, we sure are. I just love it. And I understand you have a little story you can tell us. What kind of brought you to where you're at and what you're doing today? Share that with us.
Okay, sure. Initially, this is a long time ago. I had moved to Los Angeles to become a movie star. That was my dream. And after a few years, it was not happening. I was very naive and had I had an outward bravado, but an internal lot of insecurity. And one day I had this voice pop into my head that said, God does not mean for you to be miserable. And it was like, oh, right. Well, of course, duh. But at that moment, I thought, well, then why am I miserable? Because I wasn't achieving my goals. I was working. I did get acting work, but and my family was miserable. And why are people miserable? And that sent me on a trajectory where I just said, I want to know what the truth is about life. And I spent many years in spiritual studies and metaphysical studies and working on myself. I continued to act for quite a long time and then eventually gave that up and came back to it later on. That's another story. But I over the years, what came is that I was always willing to feel the depth of my emotions. And that I realized that the more I felt my emotions, the more I actually freed myself from my conditioning, because I was not a happy child and not a happy household. And over the years, I became more happier. I became more joyful. I created circumstances in my life. Eventually, I found the love of my life. I got married. I came back to acting. I was making my living as an acting teacher. And it was all through this connection with my emotions. And once I got married, I thought, okay, well now, everything is great. I've got what I wanted and I'm happy and I'm doing work I love. And I heard this voice that told me God didn't want me to be miserable earlier, also was telling me, now what? I just kept hearing, now what? So I had a session with a spiritual counselor, and she asked me this question: what do you do better than anybody else in the world? And I was stumped. I thought, oh my God, that's the most intimidating question I've ever been asked. But before I could think, out of my mouth came, I feel.
Oh.
And I said, oh my God, my name is Joy. I think I'm supposed to teach people how to feel. And I felt this wave of energy come from the sole of my feet up through my body, out through the top of my head. And that was it. And I went home, and out of me came this class, Accessing Your Emotions, for my acting students. I taught that. They were saying, yeah, my acting's better, but this is affecting my life. And eventually I went on to get a master's in somatic counseling psychology. I mean, it just took over my life. And that's what I've been doing ever since for like the last 20 years. I've been on this trajectory of teaching, creating, and also continuing to learn and deepen my own understanding of the meaning of emotions, what their purpose is, and why we need them.
Yes, yes. And oh my gosh, in the book, you just make so many amazing points and such great information. And, like one thing you say is the energy of each emotion has a particular kind of vibration and a direction of movement.
Yeah.
And that is so true, isn't it?
Yes. That's what I have found is that when we're sad, we slow down, the vibration is slow and it turns us inward. So it's an inward moving vibration, and it turns us inward so that we can process our losses.
Yeah.
That's its function. And when we're angry, the energy goes out. So it's outward moving. The one that is exceptional, whether it's in or out, is joy. And joy is omnidirectional because it's very expansive when we're experiencing joy.
And what really hit home to me and made me think was how with sadness, the difference between, you mentioned denying it and feeling it. And it made me think about some challenges I've had in my life. And I did try to just say, okay, it happened. I'm not going to think about it and move on. Mm-hmm. Where it made me think about, did I really just feel it and let it go and move on? So what would you say about that when we're faced with a challenge or something that is a sadness?
Mm-hmm. Sadness, the section in my book on sadness is called Beautiful Sadness. We have a culture, especially the Western culture, that's very kind of stoic. It's like, feel better, move on. I'm sorry for your loss, but life goes on and all of that kind of thing. And on the one hand, that is absolutely true. We don't want to be wallowing in sadness forever. Yet each emotion has a signature piece of information that we need. And sadness is about loss, but it's about the value of that which is lost or who is lost. Mm-hmm. So when we have a loss and we feel sad about it, that is how we acknowledge the value that person or that experience or that item, whatever it is, that we had that was lost, it honors that and it helps us to process that. So I tell people, feel it. And if you need to set aside a kind of certain amount of time, because I know that with clients that I've worked with, they have a fear that if I really feel that feeling, whether it's sadness or whatever, but particularly sadness, I think that they're going to get stuck there. They're just going to feel it forever. And it's going to be too painful. And what I have found, both in myself and the people I've worked with, is that there's a beauty in feeling that grief and it moves on. Emotions comes from the root word emotere, which means to move. Yeah. And so emotions come, we feel them, and they move on. Sadness kind of has its own timing. Other emotions come and go much more quickly. But sadness, you can feel sad about somebody who died 30, 40 years ago, because when you think of them, you are in touch with that value of that person. But it's a momentary sadness, and it does move through you. So
I know myself when I was 17 and I lost my dear uncle, who just meant so much to me. Him and my auntie, I used to tell them, I'm the way I am because of you. Yeah. And I was so angry and I was so sad. And then one day I said, am I going to be angry that he's gone or grateful that he was in my life? And so I said to myself, he's a part of me and I'm going to carry that with me and the caring for him. And, it's a process, but
it is a process and it takes time. And anger comes, that it's all kinds of emotions can come with the loss of a loved one. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say one quick thing is that we also have the loss of something that we wanted but never got.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Yes.
the one people miss a lot.
Yes.
You didn't have the parents that you wish you had had, or you didn't have the relationship or the dream. Like when I didn't become a movie star, I just like, okay, I'm moving on. And I did move on for years. And there was a day where I was doing some processing and it was like, oh my God, I have all this underneath grief about the loss of that dream. And so I allowed myself some time and space to grieve. Oh, you know what it was? It was when Katharine Hepburn died. She was my idol, and that brought up all kinds of feelings for me. And so I allowed myself to grieve not only the loss of this woman who had so inspired me, but that dream that had never occurred.
Yes, yes. I mean, you know, what your book really made me think about is it's okay to be in touch with my emotions and to feel them and let them go. And, you know, something you say in the book is the attitude of curiosity. Tell us about that. Share with the audience.
Well, we have a lot of languaging of emotions are positive or negative. And of course, if they're negative, then we don't want to feel that, right? Something wrong with us or something wrong with that. So the idea is that be curious about all of your feelings. Be curious about that grief or that anger or the fear. There's some message that's there. We actually need emotions for survival. We need fear and anger to survive. We need sadness to process loss. And we need the full range of our feelings. They are there for a reason. So be curious about it rather than being judgmental of yourself or others. We tend to judge ourselves. I shouldn't be feeling this, but you are. And there's a reason for it. So having that idea of curiosity kind of lightens it up a little bit, I think, and it makes it less ominous. And it gives you what I call healthy detachment, where you can kind of step back and be, oh, well, what is that about? What is that feeling about?
Yes, yes. So what would you say is the relationship between fear and stress?
Stress can come just from an overload of activity because your nervous system has too much to do. And that tends a lot about who you are in your being. We have different temperaments and different sensibilities. However, a lot of what is called stress is actually a combination of fear and other emotions, a fear of the consequences of my actions or lack of actions, or focusing on the future. We feel stressed because there's some ominous thing out there and we're not conscious of that. So we just notice the tension in our body and we call it, oh, I'm so stressed.
Yes.
When the fact is that and right now, we all have a lot that we're dealing with. When this is recorded, it's during the COVID, and we have this underlying threat to our lives. Even if you're super careful and vaccinated and boosted and all of that, there's just in the culture, in the world at large, we have this threat. And so fears when we are directly threatened, if somebody comes and says, you know, with a gun in your head, you're going to be in fight or flight. You're going to be in a very strong state of fear, right? That's normal. But in our day-to-day lives, when we have uncertainty or someone says something or we don't like, we get along with a certain person or boss or a colleague, whatever, we have this tension. And the tension is there because fear is a contracting emotion, but fear's message is not there is a threat, but rather pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Something's happening here that needs to be dealt with. And that's really all it means. But we keep the tension. We don't deal with the message. And then we call it stress.
Yeah. Yes. And on that theme, I'd love to have you share. You talk about the practice of slow breathing, and that can help us in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about slow breathing and breath. And I know you have meditations on your website. That is such a great message. I was so excited to.
And breath is wonderful because it's immediate, it's free.
Yes.
You can do it anytime, anywhere. And there are a lot of different breathing techniques, as it were, but slow breathing, which has to do with breathing in. When you breathe in, you breathe out slower than you breathe in. If you can exhale a little longer than how you inhale, you're actually activating the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body. It's connected to the brain through the brainstem. It's connected to all of your organs. And it is instrumental in calming you down. We are regulated by the autonomic nervous system, which makes your heart beat and your digestion work and all your, you breathe automatically. You don't have to stop and think about these things. And they are regulated by the autonomic nervous system. So there's a sympathetic and the parasympathetic. I like a little science in my emotions so that people understand that this is a biological process. Emotions are not ethereal. They're really not mysterious. They are biological, and they're an information system. So when you breathe slowly, even if your breath is even in and out slow, it sends a message to your brain. It says, I'm safe. And when your brain thinks you're safe, your whole system calms down. And when you're calmer, you think more clearly, you can be more observant, you can take in information, and you have greater access to your own innate wisdom, your innate intelligence, and your creativity.
I love that. I love that. And something as simple as that can make such a huge difference in our life, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have guided meditations in my book. And if you do the audio version, because it's in print, audio, and Kindle on Amazon. And if you do the audio version, then I have them recorded with my voice. So to take you through guided meditations. And I also have some access to some material on my website. And I have a YouTube channel with a series called 5 Minutes of Joy. And it's 5 minutes of JOY, not 5 minutes of joy with joy. And it's about how we can cultivate more joy in our life by feeling our feelings more.
Yes, yes. And isn't it amazing how our feelings, can do so much with us physically in our bodies? I mean, our energy tells our DNA what to do. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating. I still read new material and do studies because it is endlessly fascinating. I found that about acting when I was acting, that it was always so interesting because human behavior is so complex and it's so interesting. And I'm finding the same with emotions, that I'm continuing to learn and to expand on what I understand about it. So,
yes. And something you say in your book that I absolutely loved was being in touch with the full range of your emotions can not only be informative and empowering, it also makes for a richer life. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yes, my motto is life is richer when you feel it. I got it up on my bulletin board up here to remind myself. And we're so afraid of feelings.
Yes.
There's so much negative language around it, and it's used to control people, frankly, and sales, marketing, all of our culture of marketing for products is about take this pill, buy this product, have this experience so that you can feel better. Mm-hmm. And as if feeling bad is a negative thing. And the truth is, we are meant to have a wide range of feelings, and feeling quote unquote bad can actually be incredibly beneficial because there's a truth to that. And there's some information and value in that experience.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's a huge, informative statement, because it's so true. And, what that made me think of is, I like to say every day, a couple things I'm grateful for. Mm. And I think that just changes the vibration of my day.
Yes. Yeah, it does. And gratitude is wonderful. And that brings up an excellent point, is that sometimes we do feel bad about something, and it's because of how our thinking is, how we're holding it. And so we have choice. The thing about being present with your emotions, the whole purpose, which is totally in alignment with your message and in your book, is that we have choice. We can choose to be happy. We can choose to be joyful. We can choose to shift our attitude or our perception of something. And that is kind of the bottom line message of my wanting people to embrace their emotions, is because by in doing that, you have conscious choice rather than being at the mercy of these emotions, feelings that come. And, sometimes they are defensive, and they're not clean, what I call clean emotions or pure emotions. And so they need to be sussed out. So that you can actually ultimately create more connection and joy. In fact, joy is the emotion of connection. Yes. That was a revelation to me when I discovered that. It's like, oh, what is joy? It's more than happiness, because it can be very deep. There can be a very quiet, profound spiritual connection that to me is joyful. And there can be an excited, outward Yahoo kind of experience of joy as well. But it's really about how we are connected to ourselves, to others, and to all aspects of living.
Yes. And would you say it's kind of like a scale? I mean, we are all human. We all have challenges. We all have doubts and insecurities, so, the challenges that come into our lives, yes, it's good to acknowledge them and address them, but yet we can choose, okay, I've done what I can do. Oh my gosh, I'm going to enjoy this sunset.
Yes.
I'm going to be, grateful for this moment. I mean, it really is so fascinating, Joy.
Yeah. And you are someone who really has taken that to heart, which I love. I think that we had, this is something that I noticed in myself, that in certain emotions, I was so used to them that they're very familiar. And there's a kind of addiction. We tend to gravitate to what we are familiar with, even if it's not the most pleasant thing. People stay in relationships way past the time that they should be done with them, stay in jobs, stay in situations when really we should be moving on because it's familiar. So it's sort of like the devil we know is better than the devil we don't, that adage, that it's easier to, oh, well, I know how to cope with this. Yeah. But if I go and change, and also there's that, if I let go now, this was a big one for me. If I allow myself to just be joyful, then that means all of that suffering I did was for nothing. But that's not the case. We're just being human. It's very complex. Emotions are simple, actually. It's people who are complicated.
Yes. Yes.
Well, being a human being, this is not an easy journey that we're on. And it's very complex, and there's so much that we have to cope with and handle and deal with and experience through life. Yeah. So it's about the flow. Yes, we'll have sad times and difficult times, and I have my old patterns that pop up, and I catch myself, and I say, oh, am I going to go down that path? No, I don't think so. Yeah. So we can just pivot. And I think that's what gratitude helps you do, is you're starting to go down a path, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to look at what I'm grateful for. And that pivots you into a different experience.
And isn't it something great to celebrate that we all are unique? We all are special. I know when I was younger, there were times where I was insecure and, well, I'm not up to that. And then I thought, I'm just going to be me, goofy and weird and dance when I hear a song I like. I'm just going to be me. And that really is something to celebrate.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. We need to celebrate ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I was a very self-critical person. I mean, I had a pre-ulcer stomach in elementary school. I had a lot of back problems and all kinds of issues physically, because emotions are in the body. Mm-hmm. They manifest as physical when we don't process them, as physical ailments often. Mm-hmm. So it was a choice. It's like, I have to say, oh, you know what? It's okay if I let that go and just be happy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm so much more productive. I do so much more good in the world. I contribute. I have, so many people come to me because they're hungry to experience fulfillment of themselves and to do good in the world, to do something that contributes.
Yeah.
And you can do so much more when you come from a place of fluidity and joy and allowing of yourself than if you're trying to be perfect.
Beautiful message. And before we go, we have about 2 minutes. Please share your website information and what last message you want to share today.
Great.
This has been so great, Joy.
Thank you. It's fun. It's gone so fast.
I know.
My website is my name, Joie Seldon, and it is spelled Joie. It's the French version of joy. JoieSeldon.com. And on that site, you can access links to my book, which is on Amazon, Emotions and Owner's Manual. You can also do a search on Amazon and access my course, Emotions at Work. I have a wonderful online course that I also do live Zoom calls as part of. And it doesn't have to be for the workplace. People do it just for their lives. Emotions at Work, and the link is on my website. And the YouTube channel, which is also under my name, Joie Seldon, but you could also Google 5 Minutes of Joy. And the message that I want to leave people with is that life is richer when you feel it. Your emotions are there to serve you, and they are there to help you understand and know yourself. They are a beautiful way of us knowing our own selves and to knowing the truth of who we are, and to be used as a navigation system for life, so that you help you to connect more authentically, not only with yourself, but with other people in the world at large.
Oh, Joy, thank you. Thank you for this beautiful information and inspiration. You are a joy to have as a guest.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I really
have to get together again one day, because we are so on the same train.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, to everybody out there, thank you for joining us. Love, hugs, and blessings. Joy, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been so great.
Mm-hmm.